We live in a world where being busy is worn like a crown, where calendars packed to the edge are seen as proof of importance, where if you're not grinding, hustling, or building something every waking hour, people start to wonder if you're even trying. This idea, always be grinding, has become a badge of honor in hustle culture. It sounds noble, ambitious, focused, but in reality, it's often just noise, a relentless engine that keeps running long after the destination has been forgotten. We're taught that stillness equals laziness, that rest is for the weak, that if you aren't moving forward, you must be falling behind. But what if being constantly in motion is just another way of avoiding yourself? There's a difference between working hard and never stopping, between having goals and fearing what might happen if you're not productive for 5 minutes. Hustle culture rewards the appearance of effort, even when that effort leads nowhere. It praises the late-night grind, the overstuffed planner, the person who answers emails at 2 a.m., not because it's healthy, but because it looks like success. But here's the truth. Being constantly busy isn't a personality, it's a warning sign, and when you're always grinding, you lose sight of what you're even grinding for. The dream starts to blur, the joy fades out, the goalposts move further away because someone else is always doing more. And you're too exhausted to ask if this was ever really your dream at all. We rarely stop to question who benefits from our burnout. Who profits from a system that keeps us spinning, thinking we're lazy if we slow down? We've been taught to measure our worth in output, but machines were built for output. Humans were built for living, and life isn't meant to be a never-ending race. It has chapters, seasons, ebbs and flows. You're allowed to pause. You're allowed to step off the treadmill. You're allowed to rest without earning it. Because being alive is already enough. So next time you feel guilty for not doing more, remember your soul doesn't need a calendar invite. Your joy doesn't need a checklist. And your worth has never been tied to how full your Google Calendar looks. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is slow down. There's this quiet, cruel lie that hustle culture keeps whispering, that if you really wanted it, you'd sleep less, you'd cut corners on comfort, sacrifice your softness, and become some kind of sleepless warrior on a mission for greatness. The phrase gets tossed around like a joke. Sleep is for the weak, but let's be honest, it's not really a joke, it's a belief, one that's been woven into the way we measure ambition. If you're well rested, people assume you're not working hard enough. If you take breaks, they wonder how serious you really are. If you don't wake up at 5 a.m. with a smoothie in one hand and a vision board in the other, are you even trying? We've glorified fatigue, put burnout on a pedestal, and turned rest into a luxury instead of a necessity. But your body isn't a battery that can be drained down to zero and just recharged overnight. It's a living thing, a system that requires sleep to heal, process, grow, and protect. And your mind? It doesn't just need rest, it needs deep rest, uninterrupted, unproductive, unapologetic rest. Because without it, everything else starts to fall apart. The science is clear. Lack of sleep leads to slower thinking, weaker decision-making, mood crashes, anxiety spikes, memory loss. But hustle culture doesn't talk about that. It praises the night owl who pulls an all-nighter, the founder who sleeps under their desk, the employee who shows up after 3 hours of sleep like it's some kind of badge. But exhaustion isn't proof of strength. It's proof that you've been taught to ignore your limits, to treat your body like a tool instead of a home. There's power in choosing rest, in closing your eyes, not because you're done hustling, but because you're human. There's clarity in a full night of sleep. There's healing in a nap. There's bravery in saying, I deserve to feel okay. You don't owe the world your tiredness. You don't have to prove your passion through pain. You don't have to earn rest by working yourself into the ground. Sleep is not weakness. It's the quiet rebellion, the soft refusal to believe that your value only comes from pushing through. So tonight, don't resist it. Don't bargain with it. Don't shame yourself for needing it. Just close your eyes and let rest remind you, you were never meant to run on empty. There's this dangerous myth baked deep into hustle culture that if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't count. That real progress must be painful. And that if you're not struggling, you're not serious. We've been told that late nights, burnout, and breakdowns are just part of the process. A rite of passage for anyone who really wants it. But what if that's not true? What if suffering isn't the sign of commitment, but the sign that something is off? We live in a world that romanticizes the grind. We watch movies where the hero hits rock bottom, sacrifices everything, suffers in silence, and finally earns their reward. It's compelling, it's cinematic, but it's also not how real life has to work. Yes, discomfort can mean growth. Stretching beyond your comfort zone is part of becoming. But there's a difference between pushing yourself and punishing yourself. Pain isn't proof, and struggle isn't always sacred. Sometimes suffering just means you're staying in the wrong place too long, saying yes to too much, holding on to a dream that no longer fits, or trying to prove something to people who stopped watching a long time ago. We've made misery a measuring stick for success. We praise the founder who lost everything before making it big, the artist who spiraled before they were discovered, the student who didn't sleep for days to ace an exam. But we forget something important. Suffering doesn't make the work more meaningful, and burnout doesn't make you more worthy. You don't have to earn your dreams through agony. You don't have to destroy yourself to be taken seriously. What would happen if we stopped asking, how much pain can I take, and started asking, how much peace can I allow? Because sometimes peace is the revolution. Sometimes rest is the power move, and sometimes joy is the better teacher. You're allowed to build something beautiful without breaking yourself to do it. You're allowed to grow in calm, not just in chaos. To choose ease over ego. To stop proving and start living. Let go of the idea that you must suffer to be seen. You are already worthy of a life that doesn't hurt. Somewhere along the way, we started believing a quiet, dangerous lie, and that our value is tied to how much we produce. And that if we're not creating, building, posting, earning, we're falling behind. We're failing. We're not enough. This idea didn't just show up one day. It crept in slowly, through school systems that celebrated straight A's but not imagination, through jobs that reward overtime but ignore burnout, through apps that track steps, streaks, sales, and clicks, and convince you that the number means you. We start to forget who we are without the doing. The artist who doesn't feel valid unless the next project is complete. The entrepreneur who feels worthless when sales dip. The student who panics when they're not busy. The parent who doesn't know how to rest without guilt. We've confused being enough with being productive, and that's not just exhausting, it's soul-crushing. You are not a spreadsheet. You are not your to-do list. You are not the sum total of your achievements, metrics, or milestones. You are not a machine. You are a garden, and gardens don't bloom 24/7. They have seasons. They need sunlight, water, space, time. Sometimes they grow wildly, sometimes they rest, and both are necessary. But hustle culture doesn't celebrate rest. It doesn't reward slowness. It pushes you to keep going, even when going means falling apart. The result? A generation of people who feel broken, not because they are, but because they can't keep up with a system that was never built for balance. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to do nothing, and still be whole. Because you were worthy before the resume, before the career, before the numbers. You are not your output. You are a soul in motion, and some of your most important growth will happen in the quiet. We've all heard it, over and over. Winners don't quit. It's said like a mantra, a rule, a moral obligation, as if walking away means weakness and staying no matter how much it hurts makes you strong. But what if that's not true? What if the real strength is knowing when to let go? Hustle culture loves a survivor story. It loves the narrative of grit and grind, of sticking it out, of proving them wrong. But what it doesn't tell you is that not every path deserves your persistence. Sometimes we stay in jobs that drain us, relationships that erase us, dreams that don't fit anymore. Not because they're right, but because we're afraid of what quitting says about us. But here's the truth. Quitting isn't always failure. Sometimes it's freedom. Sometimes it's healing. Sometimes it's the only way to grow. It takes strength to stay, yes, but it also takes strength to walk away. To say, this version of success isn't working for me. This ladder I've been climbing leads somewhere I don't want to go. We get so attached to the idea of finishing things that we forget to ask if they're still worth finishing. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. Not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up to your limits, to your truth, to the possibility that something else might be waiting. Letting go of something doesn't erase what you learned from it, or what you gave to it, or who you were when you tried. It simply means you've outgrown it. And that's not shameful, it's sacred. So if something no longer serves you, you're allowed to release it. If a goal no longer feels like yours, you can rewrite it, because your worth is not tied to your endurance, and your life is not a test of how much pressure you can take. You don't have to hustle your way into the grave to prove you were serious. You just have to live, fully, honestly, on your terms, and sometimes that means letting go.